Welcome to this explainer. We're going to dive right into something today that, well, it's a quiet observation about a feeling you probably carry around with you every single day. It's one of those feelings that is so deeply embedded in our normal routine, it's become almost entirely invisible to us. Let's take a look.
Have you ever noticed how often you catch yourself believing that your real life is scheduled to begin just after this current temporary moment passes? Think about checking the clock at, say, 4:58 p.m. You don't check it because 2 minutes is going to radically change your life, right? You check it because some part of you feels like this specific moment is just a waiting room, like your actual life is going to begin right after it hits 5.
And it's fascinating how that feeling scales up over time. We basically structure our anticipation along a line of continuous deferment. We wait for Friday, and then we wait for the project to end. Then it's the promotion. And eventually we're just waiting for that mythical moment when things finally calm down. We end up treating the present as this brief hallway that just leads to the actual destination.
What's really interesting here is what happens when we look at the invisible architecture beneath that feeling. I mean, there was a time when the world gave you visible thresholds. You finished training, and life quietly said, okay, you're ready. But this internal holding pattern we all seem to feel today, it mirrors a structural shift. That definitive endpoint, it's been quietly removed. It's been completely replaced with a perpetual requirement to just keep preparing.
Section 1. Internalizing the algorithm. We are going to map out exactly how a structural mechanism seamlessly transformed into a deeply personal emotional state. So, in a rapidly accelerating environment, preparation fundamentally changes its nature. It's no longer this stable foundation you build before you actually start living. Because the environment updates so much faster than the person inside it, preparation just loses its boundaries altogether. It quietly becomes the actual environment you live inside.
We've subconsciously adopted this closed loop. We actually start treating our own lives like software that requires just one more patch, just one more update before it can finally run properly. So you're left waiting for a state of readiness that the system itself is simply no longer designed to provide.
And this brings us to a crucial point, understanding why you constantly feel like you're falling behind. It's not because you stopped moving forward, not at all. It's because the finish line now moves at the exact speed of your progress. The finish line is no longer a static physical position anymore. It's literally an algorithmic variable.
Because of this continuous acceleration, the fundamental question we ask ourselves has completely shifted. It's moved away from asking whether we are capable of doing the work to asking whether our capability is still current.
Almost without realizing it, our very identity makes a profound psychological trade, constantly reorganizing itself around this continuous maintenance. Our focus shifts from actually applying knowledge to endlessly collecting it. And the status of readiness? It goes from a permanent destination you arrive at to a temporary subscription you have to constantly renew. Ultimately, our primary action shifts from engaging with reality to postponing it until the next update.
Section 2. The disappearance of completion. This creates a profound psychological shift in how we experience the passage of time itself.
Just notice for a second where our attention goes. Because we treat every current challenge as a mere interruption to our future peace, we end up investing the vast majority of our emotional energy into a version of life that's stored perpetually in the future. We live in anticipation of the weekend or waiting for some milestone or stability, leaving only the tiniest fraction of ourselves to be actually present in the current moment.
The visible markers that once separated one chapter of life from the next have just dissolved. Today, an achievement quickly becomes yesterday's baseline requirement. One finished chapter quietly turns into the preparation phase for the next one, which means that elusive calm we are all waiting for is mathematically designed never to arrive.
We really have to recognize that quiet, almost invisible boundary where healthy adaptation ends and the endless postponement of reality begins. Now, adaptation is obviously a necessary skill. It means using new knowledge to engage with reality as it changes. But permanent preparation? That's something else entirely. It simply convinces you that your life should always begin tomorrow.
Section 3. Arrival without completion. This brings us to a fundamental reframing of those temporary years you thought you were simply passing through.
You are endlessly preparing for an arrival point that the system of modern life has already completely optimized out of existence. The destination you've been waiting for wasn't delayed. It was essentially deleted by the architecture of continuous updates. You've been waiting for a version of life that has never actually existed.
When you look back at old photographs of yourself from, say, 5 or 10 years ago, you see someone who thought there was still plenty of time. Someone who really believed that stressful period was just temporary. And then you realize the illusion. Those stressful years, the busy months, the totally ordinary Tuesdays, they were never interruptions to your life.
They were the whole thing. They were quietly happening the entire time while you were standing there on the platform waiting for permission to begin. You thought you were waiting for life to start, but life thought it already had.
Which brings us to the protocol Multiverse, the quiet integration of everything we've looked at today.
3 layers. Layer 1, the Punchline Protocol, the price of being human. Layer 2, the Dark Side Protocol, the system behind being human. And Layer 3, the Debrief Protocol, the process that became you.
1. Phenomenon. They are all just reflections of the exact same movement. Every acceleration changes what the system demands, and quietly changes what we expect from ourselves.
1. Understanding. My hope is that you didn't just discover a new fact today. Instead, everything you already felt to be true has simply reorganized itself. Nothing fundamentally changed, but everything is now understood differently.
The ideas are human.
The narration is digital.
The interpretation remains yours. But if the preparation was actually your life happening the entire time, what are you waiting for now?